I was worried I was actually cutting this video kind of close. But, yeah. Been doing this Arc Thoughts for the last 2 years. Ever since the beginning of January of 2020. So let's finish up this year with quite literally the final arc of the first half of One Piece. Yeah. And it really is kind of fitting that you have an arc like this. Because in the Marineford arc, we pretty much had the greatest war that the world of One Piece had ever known. And what happens after war? Well, there is a time of recovery, reconstruction, reassessing the values of life. Hence why this is called the post-war arc. And straight up, quite a few people don't really care for this arc. The only person I have there. Quite a few people don't really care for this arc because really of the somber nature of it all. I mean, to put things in perspective, even in some of the darker times of One Piece, like someone's flashback or something like that, there always would be at least some form of humor to sort of balance that out. But here you don't really get as much of it. Hence why everything seems so, quiet and subtle and calm. I mean, again, the world just recovered from a major war. There was a time for relief, but there's also a time for, you gotta rebuild. The world has to recover from everything that happened, how the world has just simply changed forever because of it. I mean, just take in real life, for instance. Let's say that down the line we do find, a cure for the pandemic that we're in. The world is now forever changed. And it will take many years to even recover from that. So, put things in perspective right there. When I was in college, this was around summer of 2010 when I started really reading the manga. And I just started during the Marineford arc. So, I didn't really get the somber nature then. I mean, I get why it's there, but I never really got them because I really was more of a casual fan. And by all accounts, I still am. And the last thing I think anyone would have expected in this arc was a flashback for Luffy. Because we all knew, because at that point, we're almost 600 chapters into the manga. And at this point, we thought we already knew everything. But it turns out there's still more. Particularly what made him as strong as he was now. Because, full disclosure, his devil fruit power, the Gomu Gomu no Mi, or the Gum Gum fruit in English, really wasn't that strong. It took Luffy an entire decade to become as strong as he was before he left to become a pirate, for it to be as strong as it was now. But it really is a lesson in, sometimes the greatest start out small. And that's exactly what happened to Luffy. Plus, more importantly, it made Ace, it gave a lot more, it gave many people a bigger reason to really feel for how depressing it was when Ace died, because Luffy grew up with Ace, and you actually got to see the interaction a lot. Not to mention Sabo, which I'm not going to get into it right now, but let's just say, because, full disclosure, Sabo had presumably died in this arc, in the flashback, but it turns out he really is alive. If he had stayed dead, it really would have hammered in how much of an impact it had on Luffy, and how much it really drove him to become stronger. But I'll talk about that more when we get to Dressrosa come, let's see, March actually. Just in time for spring, what do you know? Actually, no, it'll be April, never mind. So yeah, we really will be in spring. Anyway. And after Luffy gets out of the flashback, this is about as emotionally devastated as we've ever seen him. Like, ever. Like, he's always been able to, no pun intended because he's made of rubber, bounce back from whatever life threw at him. But, I mean, his brother died in his arms. And no, technically they weren't legit biological brothers, but, you know, they grew up, they had that connection. You know, it's no different from, you know, me and my brothers from Trinity Poly. We're all connected in that way. And that makes us brothers, and that's all you need. And there's no race, religion, color, none of that's even applied. Same basic principle. So, it took Luffy the realization that, yes, Ace may be gone. And I just want to point out one thing. For a long time, this was one of my by all accounts it still is, but this is one of my all-time favorite moments in the series. When it's Jinbei who told Luffy, listen, what's gone is gone. But don't fret over what you've lost. Think about what it is you still have. I may have just paraphrased that, but you get the idea. And Luffy still realized he had his crew. He still has a family. His crew. I mean, at this point, I really wouldn't blame Luffy for forgetting that, because at this point in real time, it really had been 2 years since the Straw Hats were separated. But you know what? That was perfect, because it was a great setup for the time skip. Yeah, and basically this arc ends with Luffy subtly giving a message to his crew all over the world saying, listen, we're not as strong as we are now. If we went to the new world as we are, we'd get hammered hard. You know, we're separated. That's good. As far as we all know, the government isn't really looking for us. So let's train for the next 2 years. And when we all come back stronger, we'll be ready. And that's exactly what wound up happening. And you knew with characters like Zoro and Sanji, by the time they got back from their respective training, you know, Zoro training with, you know, Mihawk of all people, and Sanji training against the 99 Masters of New Kamakenpo, and stuff like that, like, you knew things were going to be big when they all got back together. And it just left me with so much hype and excitement. Like, man, I really want to see what happens next. And then it happened. Shortly before I started my sophomore year at Gettysburg College, I read what would wind up being One Piece chapter 597, which was the final chapter of not just this arc, but of, you know, the entirety of the first half of One Piece, where, you know, Luffy is trained by none other than, you know, the first mate of the Roger Pirates himself, Silver's Ray Lee, for the next 2 years, and he's learning about hockey, which throughout the series really had been shown, you know, in small spurts, but never really was explained. But throughout, in fact, full disclosure, the first instance of hockey is actually in chapter 1. Yeah, literally in chapter 1 of this entire series that spanned almost 25 years at this point. Gave us foreshadowing for something that would happen almost 600 chapters later. Yeah, seriously. That's what happened. And that's not even the only foreshadowing that happens in chapter 1 either, when you think about it. But that'll be explained much later. And anyway, I'm finished reading this chapter, and the final image of this chapter is basically Luffy's straw hat that he placed on the rock, saying, you know, Straw Hat Luffy is going on vacation for a little while, you know, put his dreams on hold so I can get stronger, and he puts his hat on the rock, right? And I'm like, yes, we're gonna see something awesome. And then I look to the bottom left-hand corner, from my point of view. And One Piece will be on break for a month. So very late August of 2010, to October of 2010, that entire month, there is no One Piece. Considering I had just started getting back into college, because, summer was over, and everything else, September of 2010 was the longest month of my life. I can assure you. But when it finally does come back, and it will, let's just say I was in for something special down the line. And I'm glad I stuck with the series. And you know what? It actually is appropriate that the post-war arc is the very arc I end with this. The very arc that I do this month. Because remember, I started this back in January of 2020. And it's now December of 2021. It's essentially been 2 years. So when I start, the second half of One Piece in January, it'll have been the beginning of actually the 2-year time span. I honestly didn't really mean to plan it that way, but hey, whatever works. Like, favorite, share, the subscribe button, follow me on social platforms on YouTube. I'm very hungry this video for all of you guys who are watching. Actually, this is weird. Because actually I haven't done my daily video yet. Because this is like super early when I'm doing this. But hey, it's still in the month of December. And maybe the 31st, but still the month of December. But all I can say is I hope everyone has a nice day as we get ready for the new year. Now, I'll get started on my real daily video. Take care.